It's not going live for some reason. Or it's live now. Am I live?
Yep, we got it live, baby.
Oh, well, I apologize. So let's start over. Here we go. Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Now for the guy who's been shitting on Rodgers before it was cool to shit on Rodgers. Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Yeah, I didn't need to really do anything special or specific to shit on Rodgers. He seems to do it on Packer fans all by himself. Boy, Aaron went full heel yesterday on the Pat McAfee show. I know there's going to be a ton of Rodgers fans that are like, no, he's just being honest. He's just trying to tell you what he thinks. That's fine if you're in an abusive relationship with a gaslighter. That's okay, because Packer fans love their Packers more than it feels like Aaron Rodgers does. Chad, we've got a lot of Rodgers conversation coming up this morning. Again, mentioning that he was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and woo, boy, did he unload with Pat and AJ Hawk. And we're going to kind of break this down. We've also got a poll question hanging out there on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as the Facebook group page, which asks simply, who do you think is going to win the NFC North in the 2023-2024 season? The Milwaukee Bucks were in action last night, as were the Wisconsin Badgers. Chad, it was kind of a loaded Wisconsin sports night. Not sure if you were able to catch that Bucks-Raptors game. I know it was a bit early out there for you on the West Coast, but a little chippy. Didn't get exactly into the 1980s, but there were some tempers that were a-flaring, and Big Splash Mountain, normally a calm presence, got ejected for the first time in his career, dude, which was pretty exciting to see.
Who got ejected?
Splash Mountain, Brooke Lopez.
Yeah, I guess I missed that because I watched part of the game, and it looked like Grayson Allen and Drew Holiday were having a good game.
Oh, boy. Yes, they
but
were.
I didn't catch the whole thing. And it was almost, I think it was 94-100 when at the end of the third quarter, I was like, man, it's a high-scoring game.
It was a really high-scoring game after the first quarter. 78 total points scored in the first quarter. 44-34, I want to say it was in the first quarter, and maybe even a few more because there was a score issue on the TNT broadcast. But Brooke Lopez, fourth quarter, Gary Trent got tangled up. Lopez takes off his headband, kind of like they're locked together in a tussle, and he takes his headband off. Obviously, tempers flare. The officials assessed 2 technical fouls on Brooke Lopez and ejected him. He scored 15 of his 19 points in the second half, though. Brooke Lopez, man, I tell you, you've mentioned this a number of different times. He has really changed himself from a back-to-the-basket, low-post-only scorer to somebody that is actually developing into one of the better outside weapons and really offensive threats for this Milwaukee Bucks team. I see that Jimmy the Haggerty, Jim Tim, says he didn't need no headband. Well, that's what Brooke Lopez thought. Gary Trent, he says like this, in the NBA today, don't mess with my accessories, okay? If you mess with my accessories, my drip, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a little bit of back and forth. And Matty Ice is checking in this morning and says, good morning, boys. Matt, I didn't respond to your text message last night because I was busy with a number of things. Chad, I'm running like 167,000 miles an hour trying to get this moving, all this shit fucking done in the time in which it needs to be done. But Matt has a real issue with something that Neil Duda had to say on Facebook the other day about the Vikings. I tell you what, Packers and Viking fans right now, it's like the Hatfield and McCoys. Which of them is going to fight for the last strand of Southern heritage and the rights to go back to the old days more?
Neil Duda is talking trash?
No, I thought, listen, Neil was saying something about the Vikings, and Matt just does not want to hear it. Because, God damn it, we're Packer fans here. What are you talking about the Vikings for?
Hey, I just want to explain. Now I understand what happened. At the very beginning of the show, I didn't think we were live because I was getting a message. So if there is anybody on LinkedIn right now, which I doubt there is,
it could be.
It is not operational.
LinkedIn is not operational.
So the only one that's not working is LinkedIn. Everything else is working. So if you look up at the top here,
yeah,
I
wonder what's going on there.
I don't know, but anyway, so I just wanted to explain myself. I thought we weren't live.
It looks like
very unprofessional. I apologize. Mea culpa. Now I can't hear you. I can't hear you now. Can you hear me? Your mic is muted, Dave. Dave, your mic is muted. There we go. Okay. Apparently, Dave has dropped off. It looks like we were having technical issues, which happens every once in a while. So we're going to go to a break, and we'll come right back, and hopefully Dave will be with us. There he is. Okay. I figured we'd go to
Seriously, break. This is what we're going to do right now? Like, seriously?
I think we're good. Can you hear me? Now he can't hear me.
All right. Hold tight. This is going off to be quite an issue, isn't it?
What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
The Social Distancing Sport Association, or SDSA, presents guidelines to safer athletics. For example, when participating in basketball, remember the Harden rule. That's right, James Harden is a man ahead of his time. Number 1, when playing defense, that is if you choose to, keep 3 to 6 feet between you and your opponent. Never double team and always appear disengaged or aloof. On offense, be sure to isolate yourself from your teammates. Dribble the shot clock down, rarely pass, and finally take a 30 to 35-foot shot. This has been brought to you by Arm's Length Under Armour. Go ahead and play. Just stay at least an arm's length away.
At the Little Doobie's Pizza, we kill 2 stone birds with 1 rock every time with our hand-rolled Doobie Deluxe for only $49.95. That's a street value of over $75. No way! The Doobie Deluxe is a hand-rolled 18-inch pizza that will blow your bone-resonant mind. Whoa! Topped with the sausage, black olives, extra cheese, and about a ½ ounce of the finest kush at east side of San Bernardino.
Dude, give me another slice.
Because at Little Doobie's Pizza, we put a little TLC in our THC.
And right now, for a limited time only, get an order of crazy cannabis bread for only $10 with an order of a Doobie Deluxe at the street value of over $22.50.
You know what we said at the Little Doobie's Pizza? Why get stoned then eat when you can do both at the same time?
Doobies.
All right, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios. This
Check.
is the Sports Carnival. Remember, silence is golden.
Fuck off.
Duct tape is silver. Here's your host, Dave Carney. I can hear you. Can
You can hear me? All right, I can hear you. See, this is what happens. I think this is Jeff Schneider checking in here. We talk shit about Aaron Rodgers, and look at what happens. The gods come down. Really, I blame LinkedIn. I think I changed something on LinkedIn, and then it just kicked us off. Whatever. I think now we're back. It says, Chad, we can't hear Dave either. Dave, is the mic muted? No, man, we had a system failure. It was telling me to check out of my browser and all sorts of shit. You know, one thing that is fun, when I leave Sticksville here and get to go into an actual city, we've got actual internet that we can get. I set this up yesterday with the new company. Looks like we're going to be flying like a spaceship once we get into town at the Trauma Center studio. But, wow, that was awesome. Really fun stuff. And way to start the show off. Chad, I'm sure you had brilliant takes based upon my comments, which I know that you could read my lips of. So, you know, that I'm sure was A-plus podcasting right there.
I did not. Actually, that actually turned into a real podcast. Most podcasts that you watch, you can never hear anybody. It's all choppy. It's, it's like when it was like Hunter Bumgart running the thing, you know.
Good gosh. Hunter, we can hear him well. We can't see him. Rob Dog says it must be 6 to 9 inches of snow that are coming our way. This was awesome. Yesterday, I heard from a friend that we're supposed to get a lot of snow, and I'm like, good. I'm glad I hired movers for Friday because I don't want to have to carry shit in the snow. Well, I tell you what, anytime you got 6 to 9 inches coming right at you, you're bound to take a bit of a pause.
Yeah, that's what the Kardashians do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that makes sense. So
Ray J special, by the way.
So I missed the whole Rodgers on Captain Tank Top's TV show. So yeah. I don't know what he said.
So bring up one of our handy graphics here, if you will, because I'm sure that this graphic is going to help people out if I can't talk or if for some reason my microphone decides to be muted once again. I just love this. I tell you what, though, to be fair, and I think my audience knows this, we have had 847 less categorical fuck-ups with respect to equipment than we did when I was doing a radio show. Like that was a place
we have
microphones disintegrating in my hand, board would just be dead. You'd have people coming in that called themselves engineers, really low-level computer technicians that didn't have any better of an idea than I did about what was wrong. Did you blow air into that thing? Did you get the air can and spray it? No, fucker, I didn't. This thing's just falling apart. It's from 1947.
Well, we have better equipment than they do. That's
what I'm saying. So even though this is a thing, we've gotten so used to technical failures. There was one time where I was just playing a half an hour of music. Like there was actually a half an hour of music because from parts unknown, we couldn't figure out what was happening with the microphone. Remember when they had texts that showed up before the show started? Like how that used to work? That's not a thing anymore.
No.
That is not a thing anymore.
Everything's falling apart.
Indeed. So here we go. Pat McAfee. I was looking at Matty Ice is coming back in here on YouTube this morning. Pat McAfee gets Aaron Rodgers on a Tuesday, pretty much every Tuesday. And that's really the reason why Pat McAfee's making a ton of money at this podcast, right? Because I'm not entirely sure that Pat McAfee is actually famous for interviewing anybody other than Aaron Rodgers. Like you get an exclusive with this guy, Rodgers, who doesn't go on to anybody else's platform, right? Doesn't like Colin Cowherd. Dan Patrick's too visceral and possibly a challenger for the throne of Celebrity Jeopardy or something at some point down the line. And, Rodgers needs to be in a safe space, a landing spot. For as much gas as this guy likes to light, he doesn't want to be challenged. I mean, that's one thing for sure. He does not want to be challenged in a back and forth with anybody. But when he goes on Jay the Silent Bob show, I mean, Pat McAfee with AJ Hawk, and talks about his future, Chad, it often reveals a ton that we get to look at as Packer fans, deal with as Packer fans, and sort of contemplate as Packer fans for, 6 to 12 months per year. So Rodgers, in his interview yesterday, was asked by Silent J, AJ Hawk, if he envisioned playing past this year, because Hawk says, I think I can see a playing past this year. Well, Rodgers says this, quote, I can play at a high level. And this is excerpt, of course, from the interview yesterday, says, quote, I can play at a high level. Yeah, the highest. I think I can win an MVP again in the right situation. Right situation? Is that in Green Bay, Chad, or somewhere else? I'm not sure. But I don't think that you should shut down any opportunity because Aaron, as we all know, exists in a world of endless possibilities, the beautiful mystery of football that it is. And with that, he goes on to say that he doesn't think he would get into a situation in an imaginary world, Chad, where there would be a team that if he were to be traded to, that he wouldn't want to go to. So this interview basically leaves it wide open for Aaron Charles Rodgers to continue his playing career. And we just had a poll question about this the other day. Would he retire before Brady? Who's going to go first? Well, Rodgers basically at this point doesn't look like he is anywhere close to announcing his retirement. And again, stated on the Pat McAfee show that he thinks he can be a high-level MVP-type quarterback. And this is kind of how we set it up. Do you guys remember in 2017 when I was playing really bad and people were talking bad about me? Not you, but then I went out and won 2 MVPs. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And basically did the same thing. I think I can do that again. This fucking guy, and I'm sorry, Jeff Schneider and all our other Aaron Rodgers fans, this fucking guy is nothing if not an emotional abuser, okay, to Packer fans at least. I'm not saying that he is to his teammates, but Chad, this is exactly the kind of stuff that if you're in a relationship, you do because you know it's going to piss off the other party. You know it's going to draw a real strong visceral reaction, and you know that you're putting your opposite party in whatever relationship that is, work or personal, in a position where they have to, defend their actions and basically speak up for themselves like, hey, we're not in a rebuild, it's a reload. Like Aaron says, can't be part of a rebuild, but can be part of a reload. And also, we love you. We love you so much. Please don't leave us. Please. He wants the beggary. So $100 million guaranteed, not quite enough. What else would the Packers have to do? I mean, at what point does he just ask for Never Never Land Ranch and all those people's kids to go out and visit him in California to make up for the fact that he feels slighted? This fucking guy is really a gaslighter. I'm sorry if that offends you, Packer fans or Rodgers fans, but that's what this is. This is emotional abuse 101.
This looks like the beginning of a circle jerk. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
Boy, if that wouldn't just make Rodgers the happiest guy in the room.
Look at it, just Pat McAfee, no matter what the weather, Captain Tank Top. I love it. Yeah, Rodgers is very interesting guy. And obviously he has every right to say what he wants, think what he wants, and all of that. But yeah, I don't think it takes in consideration the fact that he has a fan base that obsess about their team and every action that he takes, they're watching. He either is oblivious to that or actually probably the opposite now that I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's like using them like a marionette. That's kind of the feeling you get. And because of his passive aggressive nature, it's very hard to read. He's almost impossible to read, but clearly it sounds like from these statements that he believes he can still play. So he's in the Tom Brady mode, right? I can play forever. I'm superhuman. The question is, will he play in Green Bay? That's the only question we have. We talked about it yesterday. We're pretty sure he's coming back next year, but is he coming back to Green Bay?
That's it, baby. That is it. And right now, again, as Packer fans, we are left to sit and contemplate this. And as much as I know, there are a certain number of Packer fans, Jeff Schneider included here, who do not want to besmirch the name, the good name, the quality name, the hallowed name, if we will, of Aaron Charles Rodgers. I will say, back to your point about the look of this particular setup right here, because this is Jeff Schneider checking in, saying, wins the MVP with the Packers next year, book it. This would be the perfect way to start the Twitter feed, which I had long wanted to start, Chad, and this was years ago, called Aaron Rodgers Beards. I would love to just put up a picture of all the girls that he has. It's, he is really convincing us all that he's a man's man. Look, Aaron's a fine football player. In the division that he's played in, the NFC North, which is the subject of our poll question, by the way, who's going to win the division next year? In the NFC North regular season, Chad, Aaron Rodgers is great. He owns the Bears, who have been historically bad since 1985. That's an accomplishment. I mean, that really is, because that's a historic rival. And back when George Halas and, Curly Lambeau were running around out there getting their guys in their knickers, I mean, this was a really big rivalry. And so when, Aaron owns the Bears, I mean, that's important. When he throws, really cool, Hail Mary passes against the Lions, who had 0-16 seasons within recent memory, that's awesome. And beating up on the Vikings, who have had, the who's who of top-notch quarterbacks and NFL head coaches, those are things that you go to your NFL grave with and keep your head held high. Now, once you get into the postseason or into the playoffs or anything that really matters, different story. And he was good a decade and a half ago. Rodgers was really good 13 years ago on that one occasion in which a wild card team snuck into the Super Bowl. Man, other than that, this guy is a regular season division king, and that's about it. And so for all the numbskullery and fuckery that he gets himself into, because you're right, passive aggressive, smart as a whip, though. You look at these two hicks sitting next to him, and this is on a video call. Do you think that they're not being outsmarted by Rodgers right there? I mean, come on, man. This is one of those easy to see situations. And again, we can call it what we want. We can call it, he plays the media like a fiddle. He plays it like a fucking skin flute is what he plays it like. And that's what he wishes it was. Okay. This is emotional gaslighting for Packer fans. And look, you can say what you want. It's fine. He was a below average quarterback this season, despite statistics. And if the NFL playoffs were here and the Packers would have been in it, they would have been out just like the Vikings. That's just what it was. So well, I'm ready to just close the book on this, but of course that won't happen. We can't let that happen.
No, and he's going to do this. This is going to be an ongoing saga. We're not going to know until the very end and all of that, and that's how he's going to play it. Which that's Rodgers, and it's interesting to watch, I guess. I don't really care whether he comes back or not, personally. I'm wondering what Jordan Love's thinking right now.
Fuck.
Does he have any thoughts about this? Does he care? I don't know. I think, to answer your question, I think Minnesota wins the division again and loses in the first round of the playoffs again. That would be my vote. I think Detroit has a shot at winning as well after what we saw this season.
Yep.
The thing about it is, if Rodgers, this I think the thing that's frustrating, if Rodgers embraced his role and stopped trying to pretend like he's still as good as he is and just, as good as he was and play as good as he is, which is what he is now, and embraced his teammates and embraced the fans, I think that the opportunity to succeed is there. It's just a matter of doing that. But he won't ever do that because he's a narcissist and it's all about him.
Yes. Well said. And there's really no way that we can argue that, guys and gals. I really mean this, because as Packer fans sort of gotten used to the saga, and we called it the saga, right? A couple of days back, or maybe a week or so ago, we called it the saga. As Packer fans have gotten used to the saga, it's the same thing. And I'll just go back to some recent therapy that I've had. It goes back to the same thing that you get when you've been emotionally fucking gaslit, right? You get used to a certain kind of treatment from your abuser. You do. You get used to this. And what happens oftentimes as the abused, in this case, Green Bay Packer fans, you want to make excuses for the abuser because, again, having to admit that you're being manipulated, having to admit that you're being taken for a ride, okay? Having people tell you that what you're seeing with your own two eyes are not true things, that you're wrong for seeing what's right in front of you, those are definitely telltale classic signs of emotional abuse and what we now call gaslighting. And look, it's not that he's not a good quality quarterback still or can't be one of the best, like Tom Brady, one of the best 32 NFL quarterbacks in the league. But this is the kind of thing about quarterbacks that we just really don't appreciate, I think, as football fans. We look at the guys like, okay, we'll just call some names out: Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Joe Montana. Look at some of the great names in NFL history from the quarterback position. Johnny Unitas, I don't remember what he said. That was before my time. But these haven't been players that have, at least in my recollection, gone out of their way to toy with the emotions of their fan base in this particular way. I know that Brett Favre did a lot of the same kind of thing, but even he was a little more aw shucks about it, right? And I know that Morning Wood says that it's great because Rodgers is able to get all of us talking. But isn't this what Packer fans like Jeff Schneider don't like us doing, is talking about him because it hurts their feelings about their fandom for Aaron Rodgers? Of course it is. Rodgers knows what he's doing. And it's not just for guys like me. Look, I said this once before. I thank Aaron Rodgers for every fucking thing he has to say because it gave me an ability to fill up 3 hours with just talking about Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
But this is something that he is absolutely smart enough to know not to do as well, because that's the other thing. We talk about how smart this man is. Well, then that means he knows what he's talking about, right? So when he dodges questions on vaccination and then tries to tell you again, that's not what he said. You're wrong, not him. You're stupid. He's smart. This is emotional abuse. And I tell you, Aaron Rodgers, I know you'd never come on this show, man. Fuck you. How's that?
Wow. Matt says, and I agree with Matt, I think with Chicago having as much cap space as they do, the Packers may finish last in the division. When you think about Minnesota, you think about the Lions. And what's the other team I'm forgetting?
Bears, Vikings, Packers, Lions.
Right. And with the Bears having, all of this draft pick status and whatnot, I mean, you could see that happen. I mean, that could very well happen, especially if Rodgers isn't there and they got to start with Jordan Love. Who knows what ends up there? That's an interesting take. I mean, if we're going to go back to your poll question, again, I'm going to say Minnesota wins the division. Minnesota is a perfect team for the regular season. They're a great regular. They're going to be continuing, if they continue with the staff that they have and they continue to have Kirk Cousins at quarterback, they're going to be a great regular season team. But are they ever going to be able to do anything in the playoffs?
Seriously doubt it with Kirk Cousins. And to your point, the Vikings are built great for the regular season. They've got a ton of skill players, and it's not like those guys, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. You look at TJ Hawkinson now. I mean, the huge tight end that they got in a trade from Detroit, you can't see a necessary drop off from those guys in the next year. And as long as Cousins plays better than average, they've got a great chance. On our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, Chad, 50% say the Lions, 16.7% the Vikings. Packers get 22% of the vote. And then the Bears coming in at just 11. Looking over at our Facebook group page, Vikings and Packers right now tied, 34 points apiece. The Lions with 26% of the vote and the Bears with only 6. And I'm not necessarily saying the Bears go bam and win that division, but Joey checking in said, I'm putting my money on the Lions to win the division. And I would say just what Chad did about that, Joey. The Vikings are a better suited regular season team. Now, if you gave me a one-off on a neutral field, Detroit versus Minnesota, I'm taking the Lions.
I agree.
Absolutely. But in the regular season, and we'll see how the schedule comes out, because now that Minnesota's won some games, we'll see where that schedule actually lands, where they're going to play on the road, where they'll play at home. But I think Minnesota's probably better suited for winning the regular season. Detroit, though, if they win 10 football games next year, that wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I do think Detroit makes the postseason within the next year or two. But going back to our Rodgers take, this thing with the Packers and Rodgers, rebuild, reload, whether he's coming, whether he's going, if he gets traded, if he doesn't, is going to consume, unfortunately, the Packers, their front office, in a way that, Chad, I really think hinders their opportunities to win the NFC North next year. That's why I'm saying, fuck you to Aaron Rodgers, because, dude, this is exactly what you know it is. You are doing something too, and I'm trying to look right at you. You're doing something to piss people off, and you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with saying, fuck you. You know what I mean? Because it's like that.
But do you agree with me that if he did embrace it, I mean, what we saw towards the end of the season, what we saw specifically when they played Minnesota. I mean, they destroyed Minnesota, and they played well as a team. And they make some defensive moves. They've got great offensive potential in their wide receivers with their young wide receivers.
Great.
If he gets in sync with them, with Aaron Jones and Dillon, they've got a good run game. I mean, they have the potential there, even though they're not stacked like they used to be. They don't have Devontae Adams, all of those things. I think they have the potential of being a very good team that could go pretty far in the playoffs if he just embraced that. I just don't know why he's so resistant to embrace that and wrap his arms around. All these people absolutely love him and are constantly, backing him up and apologizing for him and wanting his love, and he'll never give it back. I just don't understand it.
Well, and again, I don't want to play amateur psychologist here because that's not my job. But if I were to jump into a show right now, it would be with Dr. Fraser Crane and Fraser. And I'd want him to sit down with Fraser and ask him, so Aaron, you don't talk to your family, huh? How does that influence you and your ability to communicate with others? Because as much as I don't go into athletes' private lives and personal lives, I don't think that that's a necessary function of what it takes to be in this particular position. And I don't think that as a sports fan, it should really matter. But when we dissect how a person in general reacts with other people in general, and right now we're talking about Aaron Rodgers on a couch talking to Pat McAfee and AJ Hawk, right? When we look at how people interact with other people, Chad, the dissection then of their relationships and how it is that they actually interact with those, especially those that you would assume would be closest to them, their parents, their siblings. There is a bit of a tell there. And I'm not saying it's 100% tell. You can't necessarily read the guy playing poker, but there is something there. I just wonder how much his lack of a familial relationship plays into how little he actually cares about the relationship he has with Packer fans, with Packer Nation, and with the NFL at large, because it feels to me that in many ways, Aaron is, at least in his mind, above the NFL. Okay. And I'm not trying to beat the COVID dead horse, but when you basically lie on public television and in front of everybody and then tell us, hey, that's not what I said, you're wrong, I'm right, you're a douchebag. I mean, that's what you are. You're just a douchebag. Hey, say what you will about Kirk Cousins. He had the fucking balls to say, I'm not getting vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
Say what you will about Kyrie Irving. He had the fucking balls to say, I'm not getting vaccinated. And you know what those guys did? They took their medicine in the media. They took their medicine on the field of play, if necessary. For Kyrie, it was. But Aaron doesn't want to do that because, see, he's better than that. He's better than you. He knows what he's doing. He's got Joe Rogan on his side. Dr. Joe Rogan, of course. This fucking guy is an asshole. That's just all there is to it. He's just a fucking asshole. So, Rodgers, fuck you, buddy. Fuck you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good. That's Dave's take on Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, this goes. Maybe this will go viral.
That would be a benefit, wouldn't it?
Aaron Rodgers.
That would be a benefit.
I wonder what his teammates think. Right, when we were talking about the relationship with the fan and the fan base, which is one thing. What are his teammates thinking when he's going on the Pat McAfee show and saying all of these things about, I don't know if I'll be back. I might be back. There may be another team. I think I'm still as good as I've ever been. I wonder what they're thinking. Like, what is this guy an asshole or what? And that's what I would be thinking.
You know what they're probably thinking? This guy's going back on that Crazy White Boys podcast again. When's he going to go on something cool? Like, why does he have to always go on this Crackers podcast? You know, I mean, that's what I think his teammates are thinking. And also, by the way, fuck that guy. All right, listen. This is a fun conversation to get into. And I know that Mike Schmidt is a huge Green Bay Packer fan. Played his college football at UWL, coached the Eagles, now up there in Aberdeen, and coaching the NSU Wolves. I want to get Mike's take on Rodgers' latest comments on the Pat McAfee show because he had been a contributor during the recent saga that we had. I also want to get Mike's thoughts on the NFL postseason. And then I'm looking at a bet, which I'm starting to work together. We'll talk about it tomorrow on ESPN with John Papadopoulos. That I'd love, Chad, to get both yours and Mike's opinion on. So stay tuned. Sports Carnival broadcasting live, at least we think we are, from the Trauma Center studios powered by the Recovery Room. Stick around.
The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest Mortgage Team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Remember, ugliness can be fixed. Stupidity, it's forever. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
I used to remember a great phrase that, again, we've lost complete sight of. It's better to be thought of a fool and remain silent than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. AJ Hawk never got that message, and that's fine. He's on a big podcast with Pat McAfee now, so it makes complete sense. Joining the program from Aberdeen, the home of the Dakota Bank Stadium and the future conference champion NSU Wolves, our good friend Mike Schmidt. Top of the morning, Mike. I'm all fired up here. Roger's going back on this goddamn Pat McAfee show, using his very, very large IQ to toy with us openly, as he's been doing for the last couple of seasons. You know, as a Packer fan, Mike, let me just start off with this, because I have a feeling of how this lands with a lot, but I don't know. You're in a different spot. When he goes on these shows and talks about the right situation, not sure if he wants to come back to Green Bay, what did that say to you as a Packer fan? Then we'll get into your acumen as a football coach, but as a fan, what does that say to you?
Here's the same old story year after year. And you saw that and you're like, oh, why again? You know, I think that's, my fan side thinks, why again? Like, why do we have to do this? But I have a theory, Dave, that I want to run by you guys. And I think you'll be open to this. I have a theory that Russell Wilson has been, he's been like Dion with a Netflix crew behind him. And he goes, watch this. I'm gonna go off this plane, and I'm gonna tell him that I was doing high knees and a workout on the plane, and watch what these people are gonna do, and they're gonna freak out. And that in like 20 years, it's gonna be the greatest Netflix documentary of all time. That Russell Wilson has been playing us the whole time, and that this has been a big joke that he's been doing this. And I'm starting to feel like Aaron Rodgers is doing the same thing. That Aaron Rodgers is putting together some sort of a Netflix documentary to feel like it's going to be like a get you documentary of Packer fans. But I really think actually a bigger conspiracy that they're doing it on Aaron, and they're going to pump Aaron at the end of this saying, you thought you were so smart and so coy in doing all of this, but it really wasn't that smart. We all knew what you were doing the entire time. And you actually are the one who kind of comes out looking stupid on this whole thing. So I think that those theories are coming together. I think the NFL is a TV show. And I think now that Russell Wilson's been playing us all for the past 10 years. And I think Aaron Rodgers thinks he's playing us all, but actually he's the one getting played by somebody who's feeding into him like, oh yeah, that's good stuff, Aaron. Tell him you might not come back. That'll be so good. And it's going to be awesome. Oh yeah, Aaron, that's right. Tell him maybe it's not the best situation. Oh, that's going to play so good. That is such good writing. I think Aaron Rodgers has a writer who's actually part of a documentary team who's playing Aaron Rodgers this entire time.
Wow. Is he saying it's scripted? Mike, are you saying it's scripted? I love this. This is awesome. I love that take.
I think all of it's scripted. I think Aaron Rodgers has a writer, but I think that the writer is actually has writers who are telling him what to tell Aaron this entire time. And they're saying, oh yeah, last year you said this. Now this year, let's say, well, I think I can be an MVP player in the right situation. Is it in Green Bay? Tune in to find out. We'll see. You know, what are we doing here? I mean, it's like, it is so old. I feel like we're on the end of a reality show that's just trying to hold on, and they're trying to do the same thing over and over again, but it's not playing out anymore. It's time for a new script. It's time to do something new here. You got to try a new line here, Aaron. It's not working this time.
So basically, it's like, I think what happened, Steven Seagal is one of the producers behind this, currently working for RT, and the documentary is going to be called, or the Netflix special, The Russian Doll 2.0. And you thought you knew what you knew, but you didn't, because it's hidden and shrouded in mystery. Mike, look, when we started covering this saga a couple of years back, and this is when Rodgers was just very upset about the drafting of Jordan Love, and we understood that he possibly leak some of that information to Adam Schefter. Who knows who did? Maybe somebody in his camp about the surprise, the shock, the absolute just aghast feeling that he had they would even dare to draft a quarterback at any point, but especially in the first round. We have been seeing this get ratcheted up more and more and more. And listen, while I go back to my earlier take, I'm not a psychologist. I have been taking some therapy for good reason. And I'll tell you what, this is fucking gaslighting, dude. This is emotional. Like torture, because you get into a position as Packer fans where you have to put yourself in a defensive spot because this is your team. And nobody loves the Green Bay Packers, or nobody loves sports teams more than Packer fans do. I think that as true of a thing as we can come with. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how Packer fans will react to this. He knows that because he only goes on one media outlet, he's going to be given part of his script writer's questions right away so that you tee him up, I'll knock him off the tee, and it'll be great. This is something that goes with 100% forethought. This is premeditated in every way, shape, and form. And if you're like me, somebody was drank the Packer fan Kool-Aid, and this is the way that this guy treats you, it might make you want to say, even though you might not have the platform to do it, fuck you, Aaron Rodgers, because is bullshit, man. It pisses me off. If Hunter Troutman, had eligibility left for you, Mike, but he's sitting there vacillating after he throws 40 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. Well, I don't know. You're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to scout somebody else in and recruit them. Get out of here. You can't be held hostage by this stuff. And if you're the Packers, it's unfortunate you don't have an owner. Packer fans, though, this is your emotions getting toyed with. It's not just me. And it's not because I would love to go viral with this, even though I would. I'm just thinking this is kind of like emotional fucking torture, man. It really is. He's playing a role. He knows what he's doing.
I think the big thing here is, like, you're right. When you put this to any other situation, yes, you will move on. I mean, one of the key components of our program is understanding that nobody's above the program. You will be replaced. Like, tell me, you show me you don't want to be here, and we'll go find somebody else that does and wants to do it. Nobody's above replacement. And these guys get to that level and they feel like they're not above replacement. And I would say this, can you imagine if Aaron Rodgers would have had an owner that would have another ego, that would have a billionaire in the room who's, sitting there doing this with him, and how bad that would be? I mean, it would be drama. It would be like Billy Martin getting fired in an interview. It would be like by George Steinbrenner and those kind of things. It would be just like that. That we would have these situations that are explosive, drama. It wouldn't have gone like this. He would be bouncing around because nobody else would want to deal with it. And the fact that he doesn't have a billionaire owner with an ego that matches his, that equals his, that isn't there to kind of curb this, allows him to go do this. And to your point, this is 100% scripted. I'm scripted with a lot of things that I say. I know some of the points and things that I want to say when I come on with you, Dave, like that I want to hit on and do that. I'm scripted and know that kind of stuff. Of course, he's doing this to his one media outlet, which are his buddies that don't push back and ask any sort of difficult questions. But that's what people who are like that, who have this inflated ego, they don't want to be challenged. Aaron, you need to sit down and answer these questions. Why you acted this way when you're talking about inoculation, okay, and those kinds of things. Not getting into whose side or whatever, but those are tough, actual journalism questions, sports journalism questions. You have to respond and say, why were you acting like this towards these young receivers or towards this person? But he doesn't do that. He doesn't take any sort of thing. And that's not a sign of intelligence. That's the opposite of intelligence. That's narcissism. And that's what we're dealing with here. But in Green Bay, he doesn't have another narcissist, another guy that's going to butt up with them and create this explosive situation. So then Aaron just gets to continue to go on and continue to be like this. And the guys he mentions, of course, the Packers want to keep those guys. He says Robert Tonyan and David Bakhtiari, if they're back. If David Bakhtiari's back, what are we talking about? He's got the second highest contract on the roster next year. Of course, David Bakhtiari is going to be around for you. He has to play, though. He hasn't played in 2 years. Maybe he should step up and play and prove that he should be that. Randall Cobb has been out. Maybe he should show that he's durable enough to show up and play for those games and the guys that he wants to have back. Of course, they want Mercedes Lewis back. Of course, they want Tonyan back. Of course, they want to sign those guys. But it makes it very difficult when you have a quarterback who has a $48 million cap hit or what, it's somewhere in that, whatever ballpark that is, or $55 million cap hit that he's getting. it makes it tough to sign those guys because you have this enormous contract. So it just, for a guy who wants to, parade around as being this intelligent being, man, sure might not understand how the salary cap works and how to make some of those things happen.
Oh, hey, Coach, if you had to put Aaron Rodgers into player purgatory, would you send him to the Colts to have to deal with Jim Irsay? Would you send him to the Cowboys to have to deal with Jerry Jones? Or would you send him maybe to the Patriots to have to deal with Bob Kraft? Or do you have another owner you'd rather see him have to get beat up with?
Well, I would really love to watch him go to the Cowboys, because then he would have to be with Jerry and Mike McCarthy. How much fun would that all be? Coming back together would be the most fun. But I feel like it would just be so much fun to watch him and Jim Irsay and Jeff Saturday, who he's going to hire as his head coach, and do that stuff. And I say that just because these are billionaire owners who just do stuff. What does Jim Irsay really care if he hires Jeff Saturday, his buddy or whatever, and put Aaron Rodgers into that situation would be just so much fun for all of us to hear, but only every Tuesday. Because we don't feel questions, from anybody else.
I just love this, Mike, because, as a football coach and as a Packer fan, you speak to us on so many different levels. And I'm glad that you mentioned, because football really and truly has always been the one sport above any where the player is not above in any way, shape, or form the team. It just can't be, because there's too many working parts. You've got 48 guys on an active roster on the field that play 53 minutes. This is in NFL football. College even more expansive. You can't have that kind of divisiveness and division in order to create a cohesive whole. The game of inches, which football is, requires an all-in sort of philosophy. I think it's really funny now to start to see the prop bets, guys, and you can go to betus.com, enter promo code Carnival, get some free play money. But I'm really looking at these prop bets for Aaron Rodgers. Will he or won't he? The does he retire before the season starts is minus 280. Basically, everybody thinks he's coming back. But where will he play next year? Green Bay is not the odds-on favorite right now. It goes to Indianapolis. You mentioned a couple of these other teams. Look, it's going to be much the same for Rodgers in any other situation as it's been in Green Bay for the last couple. If you're not willing to, as a football player, and Matty Ice was bringing this up earlier on one of our social feeds, if you're not willing to show up for the OTAs, the practice, the preseason stuff, Tom Brady essentially, and we talked about this yesterday, Mike, with Matt Janis, gave up his wife, his children, and a potential threat of police action when he was going to Tampa during COVID and playing football with his friends in the park, because he's like, nope, I want to win Super Bowls. So I'm going to go play football with my friends. Fuck you, Giselle. And this is what we're doing. Aaron Rodgers is too busy. He's got other things going on. And listen, that's collectively bargained. As a person, cool, man. Your union rep gave you a sweet deal. But if you're all about the smoke, you got to bring that fire. And if Aaron wants to be an NFL, like really an NFL top 5 quarterback, he's got to put another piece of hardware up there in one of these rafters. And I just don't see him doing it with any of these teams. By the way, none of the teams we mentioned are anywhere close to a Super Bowl, anywhere closer than Green Bay was this year. This is one of those situations that he could end up looking, like you mentioned, worse and worse and worse as it goes on. As the history begins to really unravel, he could end up looking worse and worse and worse. And the petulance of somebody like that to really, again, have the gall to play with a fan base that you know specifically teeters on the brink of fucking insanity as it is. That's a pretty pointed way of going about your business.
I just don't think that it's like a smart play for him financially. Like, you can make so much more money, and you can, all the stuff that he has from the State Farm thing and all the money that he can make post-retirement. I don't know that it's just smart to go out like this, and to do that. I mean, look at what we're all dealing with Brett Favre, who is pretty much the reason I'm in football. I mean, to be totally honest with you, it's Brett Favre is like everything, right? Like that, we all grew up and just, he made football a sport for us Packer fans. It's like Tiger Woods and what I've told you before, Dave, with golf. Tiger Woods made golf a sport. It doesn't feel like a sport without somebody who's fist bumping and has that kind of intensity. Brett Favre did that for us. I just don't think it's like smart to go about and doing all that thing. The one interesting thing I really feel like here is the locker room feels to be behind Aaron Rodgers here. And maybe they just say that, but there hasn't been one single crack in that armor ever. And I think it's people that maybe are falling in line and being a part of that. But that is a really interesting piece. I think it's interesting. I want to go play somewhere else or things like that. One thing he's got to be thinking about in that part is how is Aaron Rodgers going to work with a guy like Mike Vrabel? How would Aaron Rodgers play with somebody who's a little more strong-willed like that? It didn't end well. The older Aaron got with Mike McCarthy, who is that way and is very strong-willed, or certainly was in his time there. And that was part of that clash. There was an ego there in the head coach's office and an ego at the quarterback position, and it just didn't work for whatever reason, or who was ever to blame. It just didn't work at the end there. Will that happen again? I don't know that he has that in a guy like Matt LaFleur, who maybe is there part of it, but doesn't sure to seem to be a guy that is totally challenging. Again, we don't know all of those things, but the locker room is totally behind this guy, and there hasn't been one former player who's come out and really busted that open.
So let me just throw this out here as an aside. Michael Jordan's last dance, I think, revealed to a lot of us what people had known, but maybe not had confirmed to him in many years. Michael Jordan's teammates, for the most part, didn't like that fucking guy, but they knew that he was so good, there wasn't a whole lot to do about it. Now, during the career of Michael Jordan and up until the point of that documentary, we might not have known exactly how Ron Harper, who still kind of liked Michael Jordan, thought he was pretty much a dick. And Bill Wennington mentioning, you're punching out Steve Kerr in practice. Even Steve Kerr, whose greatness as an NBA coach, five-time NBA champion on his own right, has to walk that line pretty delicately. Look, the cracks that I think we would see come from when the team begins to diminish. Okay. When we saw, earlier this season, Jair Alexander mentioned something about losing to the Jets being a turning point. And Rodgers, hey, you got to power he exerts over these people. But again, I'm going to go back to my amateur psychology take. This dude is using emotional gaslighting techniques on everybody, maybe even including and up into his team and his coach, Matt LaFleur, because if they're not able to coach this man, if you can't talk about it, again, if you don't address the problems, and coach, tell me if I'm wrong, if you don't address the problems in the locker room, the manifestation of what could be a small issue can metastasize and kill you, right? Like it can actually kill you. And if this is in fact the last rodeo with Rodgers, what a sad way for it to all end.
Well, I just feel like to hit on your point on this, I mean, yes, you have to. And I feel like that's been a lot of why they haven't taken that next step to win the Super Bowl is it takes such a gel. It takes such a group together to win those games and everybody hitting on that. I feel like, and we aren't going to be able to talk about this, but playoff games are mostly lost, not won. The Packers against the Lions, they didn't win. The Lions didn't win that game necessarily. The Packers lost that game. The Chargers, the Jaguars didn't win the game. The Chargers lost that game this past weekend. I feel like, in my opinion, the Giants didn't necessarily win the game. The Vikings lost that game. And there's so many reasons that we can break that down for. And when you look at that, but I feel like the Packers in these last few years, I don't know that they've been beaten by teams. I just think they've truly gone and lost these games. And that is really a whole picture of head coach and throughout the organization. Not organization, but certainly the players on the field in those moments when you have those tight games, it's teams losing it more than teams winning it. My question would be in the last dance, Michael Jordan was always about the game. He was always about being the best. Kobe Bryant's the similar type guy like that. BJ Armstrong's comment, was he a nice guy? He couldn't be. That line right there, he couldn't be. He couldn't be a nice guy to accomplish what he wanted to do. But I feel like you see that in Tom Brady. Tom Brady, the ultimate football guy. Look at what he's given up and these things, football guy. In the football realm, like this is like Tom Brady is like goated God. I mean, like the holiest of holies at this point now for all of us, because this dude is with the game. Him and the game are one. He has resurrected to the game and then to the eternal life of the game for all of us that are within it, right? But is the game and our championships he couldn't be a nice guy. We're not saying he's a nice guy because he's trying to push guys to win. We're saying he might be a nice guy to inflate his ego and might not be a nice guy for personal reasons and things that he appears to be disinterested in football at times. Whereas you look at the other greats that are like that, they've never been disinterested in what they're doing. They've always been a jerk, or they've been tough, or they've been hard to deal with because they have a singular drive to be the best that's ever been. They have a singular drive to win a championship every single year because they know that's how they gain that title. And that I feel like is what we are missing seeing. We would forgive anybody for being like that if that was your singular drive. I feel like in this situation, we feel like that's not the purpose and the drive behind being a jerk or being demanding or demeaning.
Yeah, Mike, well said. And I know that we've taken up a lot of your time this morning, but this has been fantastic. And I think our audience members have echoed some of the greatest rants ever on the Sports Carnival have come from this morning with you. We're so glad to have you back. The band feels like it's actually back together now. Just really fast, because this is going to be rapid fire. Chad and Mike, I'll start with you, Chad. I'm going to be making a play. Bengals plus 4.5 this weekend versus the Bills. I don't like what I'm seeing from Buffalo recently. And Cincinnati has got a really, really strong record of covering the spread against good teams, playoff teams. Chad, your thoughts? Bengals plus 4.5 points. What do you think?
I like that. I agree with you 100%.
Coach Schmidt, your thoughts here?
I agree, because it's going to be tight no matter what. I think this game comes down to a field goal at the end. I think it's within 3, so I think that's a great bet.
And just, for Packer fans' edification, Joe Burrow's already been to the same number of Super Bowls as Aaron Rodgers. Just saying. All right, we're going to let you go, Mike. Thanks again for everything. Go Wolves. Love you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys. See ya.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate.
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
And back to the action live from the Schmidt Center Studios. This is the Sports Carnival. As Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. Now, here's your host, Dave Carney.
Yeah, Shaq tried that on the free throw line, as a matter of fact. Not sure if you remember.
I do.
To miss 100% of the shots he took. Wow, that was a lot of fun with Mike Schmidt. I really love having him back on the program. Super smart football man, of course, head coach of the Northern State Wolves, and former UWL head man, and a big Green Bay Packer fan. Look, there are so many different things that we'll have to continue talking about with respect to Aaron Charles Rodgers throughout this offseason, because the Packers have a long offseason. We've got divisional round football coming up this weekend. The Packers are not in the divisional round. They're not in the wild card round. They're not in the postseason. So Packer fans, buckle up, because this is going to be a long offseason of talking about Rodgers, because he's choosing this. This isn't us just reacting. It's not like he's such a great media maestro that he's tuning us up so that we can, just spin our wheels. This is something that he knows what he's doing and why he's doing it for. And because of that, we're bound to cover it. I do want to change gears really quick, though, because I know you don't know what this is all about, but I saw Alec Gillespie reaching out to us here this morning on YouTube. Thank you. Alex says, what up, Dave? It's Dan Gillespie. Alumni basketball tournament is this Saturday morning at DeSoto High School. Game time, 9 o'clock, goes till 5:30. After party at the Thirsty Turtle starts at 7 o'clock. That's what Alec was saying. And listen,
Thirsty
Turtle down the street from my house where I moved from here this week. Really cool bar. Great food, Chad. The Turtle Burger is amazing. I don't even eat red meat, but I have had the Turtle Burger on a recent occasion. All right. I was over there with my lady friend and my son, and we had a Turtle Burger, and it was fantastic. Also, a really great place for like late night drinks. So, Alec, I'll do my best to get over there, buddy. Lots of stuff going on. I'm actually working again this weekend, doing a new bartending shift at the Recovery Room. So if you guys want to come by for breakfast, hang out with us at the Recovery Room, get some great food, get some great drinks, we'll serve you right. But I thought that was something that we just needed to bring up there. So if you want to go to the game, starts at 9, goes to 5:30. And then, of course, the after party at the Thirsty Turtle at 7 o'clock. I think, Mike was on fire today.
He was. You were playing pop psychologist, so I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here. I think part of the reason as fans we get frustrated with guys like Aaron Rodgers, it reminds me of a little bit like Manny Ramirez. When you see a guy that is so good at what they do and they don't have to put that much effort into it, I think it frustrates us Conversely, when we see somebody that has to put that's why we love the underdog, when they have to put every ounce of energy that they have and effort that they have to get out there and compete. And then when they win, it makes us feel like we're part of it and like, hey, we have a shot. Because when you see a guy that is as extraordinary as they are and as gifted as they are, and it seems effortless, it angers us for some reason. Now, the one thing about Michael Jordan, and you could probably say the same thing about Tom Brady, they're both. They put every ounce of energy and everything they have into it. Plus, they're the best physically on the field, and that meshes as well. So that may be part of what it is. It seems like Packer fans are putting everything they have into this team, every ounce of energy, all of their time, all of their spare time, thinking about it, watching film, watching the games, buying merchandise. And Aaron Rodgers is like, kind of just casual. That pisses him off. I get it.
You know what? That's a great pop psychology take, because you mentioned the underdogs that we love and the players that we love that are both those things, right? Brett Favre, and I think this is why, Mike Schmidt talked about the reason that he really got into football was largely Brett Favre. Well, why was John Madden, why was his favorite player Brett Favre? Because Brett Favre was a football player. I made this point to some people the other day. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback, right? Brett Favre is a football player.
Totally.
Josh Allen's a football player. Bills, I don't think, are actually going to beat the Bengals this weekend. I really do like Cincinnati. Plus,
I do too. I agree.
And I think if I were going to make a straight wager right now on just the money line, I would take the Bengals on a money line play as well. And again, don't forget, BetUS.com, the official sports betting partner of the Sports Carnival. Enter promo code Carnival and get 125% free play money. I think that, you want your guys to be that all in sort of a player. Now, that's not everybody's MO, right? Like, that's not the way that everybody's built. Scottie Pippen, as great as he was, checked out on Chicago a number of different times, right? Like literally and physically checked out on Chicago. Maybe it had to do with his contract or whatever, but we're talking about headache games. We're talking about a whole bunch. I don't want to come in the game because Tony Kukoc is going to take a last shot, which, by the way, he made. There were things about Scotty's game that if you look back on, you can say were a little bit less than ideal. And Michael Jordan mentioned that in The Last Dance. The reason that, as a Laker fan, and I'll go back to this because, we haven't even, covered Kobe Bryant today, which I throw him out here like you do Larry Bird. The reason that Laker fans were willing to accept the seasons of absolute futility from the Lakers and Kobe's last couple of seasons is because they saw with their own two eyes exactly what this man was trying to do physically to get out on the court and give it every ounce he had. And that final game for him, that 60-point performance, and rest in peace, Kobe, is going to go down as one of the greatest sporting achievements of all time, because that man saved every ounce of everything he had to pour it out on the court. So that one thing could be manifested and realized. By the way, he kept the Utah Jazz out of the playoffs by beating them that game too. So that was another fun thing. That's what we like about our guys.
Well, and the guy would I can't remember what the number was, but he would take like 2,000 shots every day. I mean, he would up until the end. That's who he was. Where you don't get the feeling Aaron Rodgers is not doing that. Now, one could argue that the way Aaron Rodgers is approaching is probably a healthier way of approaching anything.
Fine. That is fair.
You shouldn't be 100% into anything. You should diversify yourself a little bit and have a well-rounded life and all of those things. And I think that's probably true. But in the sports world, we don't look at it like that, right? Because sports fans are, fan is short for fanatic. So you're fanatical about it. So if your athletes that you are fanatical about aren't fanatical about what they're doing, that doesn't mesh very well.
No, it really doesn't. And Chad, that's going to circle us right back to this particular question. Let's just say, for grins and giggles, guys and gals, the Packers don't have Rodgers back next season, which I still largely think they will. And I think
he'll come back. He'll be back.
I think he's going to be a Packer too. I really do. The money's there. The team's fine enough. I don't think that the team
toying with everybody.
Oh, okay. Again, fuck you, guy. So let me just ask you, assume for grins and giggles that he's not back. Who do you think wins the NFC North next year? Excuse me. We're still looking at a virtual tie on our Facebook group page. Vikings and Packers coming in together at about 34%. Over on Twitter, at the Sports Carney, 50% of respondents saying the Detroit Lions, they're going to win the division next year. I still agree that the Minnesota Vikings are probably a better team on paper, probably a better team for the regular season. But look, if Green Bay gets Rodgers back and these receivers continue to develop, A.J. Dillon, looking at that backfield, Aaron Jones, this isn't a team that's far off. There's not like a million pieces that they need to find in order to make this a good team. Thanks so much to everybody for making this show go. Again, the Recovery Room, the proud sponsor of the Trauma Center Studios, Coast to Coast, BetUS, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate. Kyle knocked it out of the park. Got my house sold in 2 days. Preferred Insurance, Tony and Brian down there on 4th Street. Of course, our friends over at the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia, Todd Vercruzzi, the Coos, Sean O'Neill, the O'Neill Law Firm, and of course, Joe Sampson. Happy belated birthday once again. Helping Hands Landscaping. Really appreciate y'all, fellas. All right, we're going to have to go, but we'll come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be the last show of the week because I got to take Friday off. I'm moving on Friday. Big snow coming in, which is awesome. Just what we needed right now. And for what it's worth, we'll continue this Aaron Rodgers conversation. By the way, fuck Aaron Rodgers. We'll see you in the morning.